There are two ways for me to judge Bob the Builder Mega Machines. The first and most fair way is to judge it as a product of its time, 2017, and the second is to view it with a nostalgic hat on as somebody who grew up watching the original Bob the Builder. And in the first way, I think it's great. In the second, not so much. This was released in 2017. It's directed by Stuart Evans and written by Keith Chapman, Chris Parker, and James Mason. And this obviously looks very, very different to the classic Bob the Builder, and that's kind of why I wanted to watch it. I was keen to see what it was like, but I have to say, apart from the animation style being quite different and Bob and Wendy definitely looking very different, it still feels like Bob the Builder. The characters are very true to their personalities. The vocabulary is, of course, very, very similar because we're dealing with a similar target audience. So, in many ways, it did feel like Bob the Builder. If I shut my eyes, it could have been really nostalgic. But let's be honest, it's not classic Bob the Builder. It didn't give me that warm, fuzzy nostalgia that I was hoping for but didn't expect. On the other side of things, for today's youngest audiences, I think it's a pretty great story, and the animation quality, I can't fault it. It might not be nostalgic for me, but it is very good, and the story is very well written and developed. Bob and the gang have got a job to do where they're turning a quarry into a reservoir, and they're also building a new dam. This is a big project, so Bob hires the help of another builder, a character called Conrad, and Conrad brings with him these huge, mega machines, and they are massive. I don't know if they're to scale. When they're next to Scoop and the other characters, they look ginormous. I don't know if they would be that big in real life, but if they are, that is terrifying. We have Ace, Crunch, and Thud, and the names are obviously very powerful and onomatopoeic, whereas, especially with Thud and Crunch, whereas Scoop and Muck, their names relate more to the jobs they do rather than the sounds they make. But I think the design of them, it's colossal. I haven't looked at the merchandise for this, but I definitely think they would have released toys of these mega machines, and they do look amazing. Conrad, however, even though he's been hired by Bob to help, he's not happy that he didn't get the contract. So he decides to sabotage the job, which will of course make Bob, who is leading the project, look really bad. And I won't say how he does that or what the plan is, but there are obviously lessons in this in honesty and communication and not backstabbing people. So obviously a really important message, but it's also quite gripping. I can imagine a young child becoming emotionally invested in it and feeling sorry for certain characters, namely some of Bob's vehicles, and there are explosions and things. So I think absolutely for today's target audience, it's very well done. The animation is really good. The narrative is brilliant. The vocabulary, as I said, is very suitable for the target audience. It explains things very well. For example, Bob's trucks don't know what a dam is or what a reservoir was. So Bob would explain these to the characters, and of course the young viewers watching it can learn at the same time. So we have a nice educational element to this as well. As a product of 2017, I can't really fault it. For today's target audience, or I guess the target audience in 2017, it's not too bad at all. Watching it for the nostalgia, I did obviously get small, tiny bits of nostalgia from some of the characters and the style. It still, as I said, feels like Bob the Builder. It just doesn't look like Bob the Builder. So if you're looking for some nostalgia, but with a fresh story that you haven't seen, then there's a little bit of it, but you'd probably be better off watching some classic Bob the Builder. But that aside, I have to say Bob the Builder Mega Machines is not a bad film. And for the right audience, I think it could go down really, really well.